Howdy, folks. Good morning. Shema Israel Adonai Elohim Adonai EGAD Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Okay. Well, what I just called is the Shema of Israel. And if I look at the Bible, Jesus, Yeshua, is pronouncing that Shema of Israel. What it means actually, hear, O Israel, listen, O Israel. Adonai Eloheinu, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And Jesus is telling that to people, that God is one. Where does he tell that? Well, in Marcus, the Mark account, the Mark Gospel. And if you look at Marcus 12, verse 28, I'll read it out from the King James. And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he, Jesus, had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Jesus answered him, the first of all commandments is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Shema Israel Adonai Elohim Adonai EGAD. EGAD means one. The Lord is one. God is one. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment, and the second is alike, namely this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself, and there is no other commandment greater than these. And the scribe said unto them, well, Master, you said the truth, for there is one God, and there is none other but He. And to love Him with all your heart, with all your understanding, and with all the soul, with all your strength, and to love his neighbor as himself is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. And then Jesus saw that he answered discreetly and correct. And he said unto them, you are not far from the kingdom of God. And no man after that dared to ask him any questions. So what Jesus is referring to is that, yes, God is one. God is one person. In the New Testament, we also worship one God, just as the Jewish people do. And it's the same God, at least according to us, according to the Christian Messianic believers. But how can we understand that? Well, what I'm going to do now is, it seems not so holy, but I do this to get a picture of how we see God as one, and that God is that Jesus and God are actually the same person. And I'll first picture you. Moses was the first one who he received a command from God to say, okay, I want you to build a tent and a tabernacle. And God said, well, you must build it such and so, and this, and you have to use this and this material, and so on, and I want you to build it like this. And Moses did it so, and they sanctified themselves, and then God came in that tent. And what I'm going to do now may seem unholy, but it's not meant in that way. It's just to make you clear what I mean with it. God came into the tabernacle. God came into the tabernacle. Yeah. Just for the picture. Yeah. This is a sup of me, a clean one. Don't worry. And what God did is God came into the tabernacle that Moses has built. Okay. Later on, and also at the tent of coming together, where Moses and God spoke to each other, God came into the tent, and Moses was able to speak to God personally, from face to face. And later on, David wanted to build a temple, but he didn't do it. His son Solomon did it. And when the temple was finished and sanctified, etc., God's holiness came into the temple. Yeah, the temple was from stone and bricks and wood and gold and whatever kind of stuff. But God appeared in the temple again. And also, well, the temple of Solomon was broken down, and then in the time of King Herod, the temple was rebuilt, but then they had the temple of Herod. And again, God appeared into the temple after sanctification of the temple. So God came into the temple. Yeah. Well, then Jesus was born. And the temples were all made, also the temple of Herod was made from bricks and stone and wood and the whole thing. Well, then Jesus appeared. And as you know, we are all made from atoms and not from wood and stone, but from minerals, from carbon stuff, etc., from water. And what happened is that God appeared in Jesus. Yeah, in the same way, more or less, as he did in the tabernacle and the temples. Yeah. So actually, what we can see is that Jesus is so-called a sock puppet of God. That may sound unholy, but it's just to give you an idea of how God appeared in Jesus. And that may seem unholy, but this is not my intention. And it's just to make you clear that God can appear in material stuff. That his spirit, his being can appear in this case, in Jesus Christ. Well, why did God do that? And in the first place, in this way, as Jesus is so-called a sock puppet of God, God is still one God. Because if you look at the sock puppet player, then God, the puppet player is behind the screen. You don't see the puppet player. And what you do see is the puppet. Yeah, you see the puppet in front of the screen playing with more puppets and so on. And in that way, you see only the puppet. But the player is behind the screen, and the arm is invisible and is in the puppet. Yeah. So you only see the puppet, yeah, but you don't see the player behind it, and you don't see the arm in general. And that's the same way, but it's still one person. I mean, the puppet player is not three persons. No, it's one person having a body behind the screen, having an arm, and having the puppet. And the only thing we can perceive is the puppet, in this case, the sock puppet, Jesus. Well, sock puppet, Jesus. To me, it sounds a bit unholy, but it's not meant that way. It's just for the idea, to the picture of it. And because God is spirit, you cannot grab spirit. So what God needed to do is to make a blueprint. And Jesus is actually the blueprint for us. God made an image of himself in Jesus, a blueprint for, okay, this is the way I'm going to make humans, because Jesus as human is a picture of how we were going to look. We are imaged after Jesus, after the person Jesus. And that's why that Jesus is also, Yeshua, is the first one that God created, made, born, but Jesus was always there with God. Jesus and God are one and the same person, so they're indistinguishable. But for me, as a human being, I can refer to another human being, and to refer to God as being God, as spirit, it's I cannot comprehend it. I'm too simple in reference to God to comprehend how God is. So God needed to make a so-called picture of himself, a so-called sock puppet of himself, and from that we are modeled. So Jesus, Yeshua, is the blueprint how we are looking. And of course we failed and we fell, and so we made a mistake in the Garden of Eden and so on. But Jesus did not make any mistake. He did not fall for mistakes. And but we were made after the image of God. So we are looking actually like Jesus. And like in the Bible it says that some scribes and some Pharisees came to Jesus, and they said, he one time said, they challenged Jesus in some way and said, and Abraham has looked upon the days that I would come, and then say, well, how can it be? You're not older than 50 years. And then Jesus replies and says, before Abraham was, I am. And then the Pharisees and scribes, they wanted to stone him because they in their mind it was blasphemy. But at that point, Jesus refers to himself as being God. I was first before Abraham came. And so, and it's true. Jesus is the blueprint of us. We are image after Jesus, Yeshua. But for that, God needed to make a blueprint, Yeshua. And that's why Yeshua could also say, I was sooner than Abraham was. Because he is God. Yeshua and God are one and the same. Like I explained in the top play. And that's how we see how God is one, but appears in three different ways. His spirit came down in the temple. So God is God, the Father, but he appears in the temple as the Spirit, and the Spirit of God also hovered over the waters. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and the Spirit hovered over the waters, was floating over the waters of the earth, and then as Jesus, as God made the humans after his liking, man and wife. He made them man and woman. So we are looking, we appear as God. It can only be if there is a blueprint of a human being. Well, and that was Yeshua, the Messiah. And so yeah, that's actually that Jesus is the blueprint, and actually, well, it may seem unholy, but Jesus is the sock puppet of God. So we can relate to who God is, and that's why Yeshua also said to, I think it was Philip or Thomas, when Philip asked, well, show us the Father. And then Jesus replies, well, you've been now about 3 years with me, and you're still asking after to see the Father? If you've seen me, you have seen the Father. If you've seen me, you've seen God. And it's true. I mean, as Jesus is the sock puppet of God, the picture of God, the photo of God, so to say, then you've seen God if you've seen Jesus. And that's why I, as a Christian Messianic Christian or a Jewish Messianic, I prefer to be Messianic and then applying the Jewish stuff of the Bible, then then yeah, we see God as one God, appearing in three different ways. And, well, that's what I want to explain. Okay, hope you understand it. Okay, bye.